everyone, Rod Shelley here, and this is most likely will be the last behind the scenes of 2019. Today I'm actually recording this on Thanksgiving Day. It'll probably be a couple days later after I do all the editing and stuff that you'll see this. But welcome to Coffee with Rod and the T.N.A. girls. Shameless plug. You can get your own on Redbubble or Pixels. I'll have links below. Nectar of the gods, that. This one is going to be a little bit different, this behind the scenes. It might be a little longer than they normally are. I always promise around 10 minutes and they run to 20 anyway. So rather than just having an image of some old dude sitting here in a Girls from T.N.A. t-shirt and rambling on endlessly, I thought, why not do something that's actually behind the scenes? This image right here that appears magically that I just posted on Renderosity. I am going to kind of take you through my workflow on something like this. We'll create another one. The bridge that she's on will be a little different color, but I thought, why not talk about the stuff that's going to be upcoming, the T.N.A. stuff, some of the other things. Why not talk about that? But like I said, instead of you sitting here looking at my pretty face, why not talk about it and create a piece of artwork at the same time? So you can kind of get an idea of my workflow and, you know, maybe pick up some tips here and there. So why don't we get started with that? So join me. We'll be playing with Poser and Photoshop, and hopefully you'll find this entertaining and maybe pick up a few tips from it. So without further delay, let's go jump into Photoshop. Okay, I am going to open up Photoshop here. I've already got it open. I'm going to open it on the screen, and here's the image that I uploaded to Renderosity of my little fairy in red and pink and lovely warm colors on the space sidewalk background. And what I'm going to do while I talk about some of the things, some of the plans for T.N.A. and some of the other stuff that's going on here, is we're going to recreate this, and we will put our Kinnie in the image. So let's get started. And what that bridge is made out of is this. This was in a restaurant that Ron and I went to, with the guy I used to work with at Children's Mercy. We went to for lunch one day, and separating the areas where the booths were was this really neat panel, and it looks to me like it's probably poured rosin. It's full of bubbles and all kinds of stuff that reflects light, but it had this light panel underneath it, obviously, that would rotate through different colors, red, green, blue, so on. But that's basically what I used. I had my iPad with me. I thought it was pretty neat, and figured I'd have a use for it somewhere down the road, so I took several photos of it. So this is what we're going to use for our background, and I'm going to unlock the layer. I'm going to take the image and rotate it 90 degrees, and let's make that full size. And what I'm going to do, I'm running Photoshop 2020, and they had added a neat new feature called Object Select. And what this does, you can use either your lasso or your rectangle. I'm going to stick with the lasso for this, but you can loosely select an object, like I'm going to select the green panel here. And Adobe's AI will do a pretty decent job selecting. Now, you know, it didn't quite catch all of the green here, so we can kind of add to this and see if it now kind of messed that up. So that's okay. That's not a big deal. But anyway, what we can do is throw a layer mask on this, and kaboom. Now, it kind of left off a little bit here, and of course it cut off some of the parts here, so what I can do is just go in and paint on the layer mask. So those parts where it cut off, and I'm going to increase the size on this and reduce the size of my brush a little bit. To bring back the parts it cut off, and I'm not going to worry too much about the black here, these other parts. We'll take care of that here in a minute, as well as the parts that it didn't cut off. These are nice straight lines, so we can use the polygonal lasso tool to take care of these little problems. And I'm not going to be too worried about it anyway, because we're going to have a black background. It's going to be in space after all. So let's just paint in these missing parts. Painting with white, obviously, on the I'm painting on the layer mask, actually. So there. All right, so now we get all of our parts back that we lost, and I'll just take the polygonal lasso tool, and I think what I'm going to do to make it a little easier to see is I'm going to add a new layer, and let's stick that underneath there. We'll make that layer black, and then I'm going to reduce its opacity just a touch. And then we'll go into the layer mask, and I will use the polygonal lasso tool. And I usually, when I'm using it, I frequently will just use the mouse instead of the pen. I'm using a Cintiq, a 22 HD for this. And I'm not going to worry too much if there's a tiny little black line, because like I said, this is going to be in space, which is mostly black anyway. Alright, now let's just fill this with black. I didn't really mean to do that, but that's alright. So, let's talk a little bit about some of the things that are going to be happening here in the very near future with T.N.A. while I go through this tedious little procedure. I am targeting mid to late December to early January to get things rolling again. Right now I'm kind of in the process of creating some things, messing with some new software, learning a few new techniques, and things like that. So, well, let me get my little list out here. One of the things I want to do is have less time in between the pages. I'm planning on speeding things up quite a bit, you know, as much as possible, because Chapter 7 is going to be huge. It is going to be huge, and there's going to be, at least right now the plans are, there's going to be a whole lot more action. There's going to be a lot of things the girls are going to be getting involved with. New characters. There will be some new characters. There will be some guest appearances from characters you haven't seen before. Well, one of which will be, there's no spoilers here, but one of them will be quite interesting and quite surprising, and you will see. You will see. Got quite a few people. Actually, I need to do a shout out to a number of people that have been collaborators on the story. Characters I've, you know, they've created and let me use. Dimamker, Dan, his wonderful characters, Ranfa, Trish, and Rico. Steve, Eekdog, with Tina, and a new girl, Nikki, who is, you've got Tina and you've got Tenacious, who also goes by Tina. And Nikki is Tenacious's little sis. So, got those. Got Fay Mike, 55, Mike, of course, and came up with some suggestions and some ideas with Kinnie, or Kinnie, and I have some other collaborators as well. Like I said, there will be some surprises in store, so look forward to that. And I'm exploring some new software. I have just downloaded the new version of Blender and have already kind of started playing around with that. Hopefully for making up some new props. There's a lot of things Blender will do that I haven't even thought of yet. It's a pretty deep program. Lots of things it'll do, and its price is certainly right. So look forward to that. I've got View on my other machine, View 10, and I will probably won't be going into upgrading View anymore, because they have gone to, like Microsoft and Adobe, they've gone to a subscription, and I've already got subscriptions to both Adobe and Microsoft, so I don't need any more. But I do have View 10 complete from the time when they, you know, when it was a perpetual license. So I will be using View 10. Like I said, I've got it on the on my main machine. I did have it on this machine that I'm working on right now. May try to put it back on. Ran into some licensing issues there, but Eon was pretty helpful and helped me get it going again. So the machine I'm on right now is the one that the hard drive crashed a few months ago, and I ended up basically just putting a new hard drive in and reloading Windows. This has got Windows 7 on it, I'm running with both Windows 7 and Windows 10 on these machines. But anyway, let's crank the opacity back up. All right. So now we've got our space sidewalk. And what I'm going to do on this, I want to, let's go into the transform tool, and I'm going to hold down on the shift key and grab this top one, because I want to make this, squish it down a little bit, make it a little bit more level. And I'm going to straighten it out a little bit like this. Distort it a little bit. It used to be if you did not hold down on the shift key, you could free transform or free constrain an item you had selected. But here, I think it was with a couple upgrade versions ago, Adobe decided to switch it around 180 degrees to where if you didn't hold the shift key, it would constrain the aspect ratio, which basically I guess is the way most other software works. So a lot of people didn't like that. I like it the way it is now. Okay. So that's about what we want. That's looking pretty decent. So now we need to kind of put in a background so it doesn't look so blah. And what I'm going to do here is I made this star brush, and I'm going to increase it a little bit in size. I'm going to put my colors around here. There we go. And I'm going to make it just a couple touches bigger, and I'm going to throw another layer in here on top of the background layer. But I made this brush, I can't remember how long ago. It hasn't been that long, but it's pretty, if I do say so myself, it does a fairly decent job of giving you a nice starry background. And it's like what the sky actually looks like when you're not in the city or with all the light pollution. And I will actually make this brush available for my Patreon supporters, all 2 of them that I presently have, hint hint. But I will go ahead and put that, export those brushes and maybe a couple others. I've got a few other brushes that I've made, and put them up shortly as a package on Patreon. So now we've got our stars. I want to go ahead and put a galaxy or something in the background like I did on the other one. And obviously, if you need actual space backgrounds to put in, there's no better place than NASA to get those. They're all, you can use them freely. All they ask is a credit them to NASA. So I will drag this in and say thank you, NASA. So I have basically pre-selected some images here because I have literally hundreds of thousands of images, and you don't want to sit here for an hour watching me search through hundreds of thousands of images for just the right one. So I pre-selected a few that I thought would look pretty neat. And let's drag this one in. I kind of like this one. And I am going to, now I am not holding down on the shift key and constraining it, and here you see it constrains it. Keeps the same constraint, the same aspect ratio, is what I'm bumbling around trying to say. So I think I'm going to put this over here, kind of in this area. kind of like that. And I'm going to go ahead and put a layer mask on this, and grab a brush and just kind of make these hard edges go away. And I'm probably going to mess with the blending mode here in just a second as well. Okay, so that's normal. So let's look at a few blending modes. Ooh, screen looks pretty good. Screen looks good. What's that, lighter color? That doesn't look too bad. Overlay, that's not going to work. Because it's, let's see, what's this? Exclusion. Doesn't look too bad. But I think I'm going to go with, what was it, screen? Yeah, screen, because it kind of lets the other stars, the background stars, show through. So let's go with screen. That looks pretty slick. And let's try something. This is my workflow, folks. This is, you're getting to see the real deal here. This is what I what I do. Let's go into hue and saturation, and I'm going to hit Alt and clip it to this layer, and then let's just kind of play with some colors here. I don't want to make it look too weird, but the theme is kind of going to be green. Yeah, let's bring it about there. Okay. So let's take this layer, the layer with our space sidewalk on it, and I'm going to make that a group. And I'm going to go Control-Alt-E, and then I'm going to shut off the group. What that does is it basically just gives me a copy of the sidewalk, the space sidewalk, this thing here, on its own layer, which I can then Control-J and play around with layer modes, or layer blending modes, is what I'm trying to say. So color burn, multiply, it kind of increases the color. Go through a few of them and see what looks good. That's not too bad. Nah. I am thinking multiply, and then throw a layer mask on that, and again grab a decent sized brush and paint on the layer mask to bring out this, like this light area down here. We want it to kind of glow. Maybe not that much. So let's take our flow down considerably. Let's think about 38. Open our brush up a little bit. Have a little bit more control over that. Yeah, kind of like that. Give a little bit of glow to some of these brighter areas. Kind of like so. Maybe not that much. So yeah, look for some new software being used. I've got a couple of basically side stories that I'm going to be working on, or that I am actually working on. There's a story, a backstory of G4, a backstory of the director, and there will be a few more of those coming along in recent or in future months. I also, one thing I want to do is I started a series called Kinnie's Diary, which basically is looking at things from our Kinnie's point of view, you know, coming in from Fay Valley, coming into the world of humans, and you know, getting used to some of the strange things that she would encounter as a Fay, and not quite understand. I did one where she was up with Marissa and Julie up on the roof looking. They were looking at the stars, and Kinnie was saying, "Oh, I'm so sad about the war," and you know, the girls are like, "What war, Kinnie?" And, "Oh, I keep hearing people talk about the war among the stars." So, you know, little things like that. I want to continue with that. So, anyway, we're pretty much where I want to be with this. And the next step, of course, will be adding Kinnie. So, we'll jump into Poser and work with Kinnie a little bit, and then we'll wind this up by putting Kinnie on the sidewalk here in space. So we'll see you in Poser. All right, now we are, hello there, Miss Pamela. We are going to open up Poser, and I've already brought Kinnie in and posed her and dressed her because I didn't want to bring her in nude, because YouTube would have had a given birth to a moose if I would have had her naked. So want to stick within the terms of service. So here's Kinnie. I've applied a pose to her. This is a pose by my friend Jenny Pixeluna, one of my oldest and dearest friends on in the 3D world. Probably one of the first people that I met and interacted with. So if you're watching, hello, little sis. I call her little sis. She calls me big bro. Well, like I said, we've been friends for quite a long time. So anyway, this is one of her poses, one of her fairy poses, and I modified it a little bit. I brought Kinnie's arm in just a bit, like so, and I dressed her. This is what Coco Real something outfit for G4, or not G4, but V4 and A4, and Kinnie and Arwen are both based off of Ico, with a little bit of fiddling by me. I'm on my Origin laptop. Oh, excuse me, time for some water. I'm on my Origin laptop right now. I'm using Poser Pro 11, 11.2. This is the Bondware version. And I have to say right here, the Bondware version is really awesome. It's very, very stable, very smooth. Bondware, Renderosity, you guys have done a great job with Poser Pro 11. When I first bought it from Smith Micro, I didn't use it that much because it seemed like it was kind of flaky, but the Bondware version really, really works well. So anyway, enough jibber jabbering. I'm going to switch to the aux camera, and I am going to, it's not, trying not to show too much here. I've got her top on. I want to kind of tighten her top up a little bit there. You can see there's a little bit of space between her and the strap. So this is just some of the fine tuning I usually do. So select the outfit, and one of my absolute favorite features of the newer versions of Poser is this morph brush. You can set this up to absolutely conform almost perfectly to whatever figure you've got the clothing on. I'm going to set the poke through margin to 0.001, which makes it almost skin tight. And then if we come up here, I've got the second brush selected, I've got the radius. Keep the radius rather large on most things. And then you can come in and just make the clothing conform almost perfectly. I love this tool. I use it all the time. And now you can see we've brought that in quite close to Kinnie, so that it, it kind of drapes like it normally would on a human figure, or even a fey figure. Okay. Now, I'm not going to do a whole lot to this because I pretty much like it the way it is as far as the pose and everything. I'll probably work with the lighting here in just a minute, but I might go ahead and do a little work on the skirt here, because you see we got some poke through happening there on her hip. So yeah, let's go ahead and do this. I always set it to new and just choose whatever it likes to say. The goal is Arkinia, of course, and usually it'll save the setting that you put here. So let's just go ahead and take care of that poke through. And tighten it up just a little bit around her waist. And a little poke through there, so we'll take care of that. Although that's on the side of her that won't be seen. I usually, with a character, even the part that isn't seen, I will usually go in and, we're not going to see the back of her butt here, but I still like to do that. I don't make sure it fits her, even on the parts you can't see. It's probably nuts on my part, but okay. Now let's go back to our main camera, and I am going to go back to the aux camera for just a minute, and I want to take the skirt down just a bit in the front there. So, Kinnie is being modest. She doesn't want to show too much. Okay. All right, now I am going to go Control S. And I'm going to call this Space Sidewalk. green. Control S is your friend. Now I want to do a little bit of work on her shoes here. So it's kind of a snakeskin texture, but I'm going to change it. So we're going to go into the material room, and I am going to bring up a bunch of materials. Like I said, I'm using this on a laptop. On the other computer, I've got 2 monitors, so I usually have the menus and stuff on the second monitor, which I need to get a small monitor when I'm doing this. Oh, excuse me, on the laptop, because it just makes it a whole lot easier. And where did I hide materials? As you can see, I have external runtimes here, and I've got tons and tons and tons of stuff. It's ridiculous, but fun. Okay, let's do the AF glam here. Greens, let's do kind of a green satin for the shoes here. I think that'll look pretty darn sweet. And yeah, let's even do the platform there. So we'll do that. If I can select, that selected the skin. I want to select the laces here, which I guess I could do from here. Shoelace there, and let's do this part. Yeah. And then for the insole, let's make that black. And we'll put that on the main camera, yeah. And I'll probably do something with this too. Let's see. Let's do a render. I'm going to switch to Firefly. This was just something I was experimenting with earlier. Okay, not bad. Not bad at all, if I do say so myself. Alright, let's go ahead and let's see, what can we do? I want to put a little more green into her outfit, so let's do this and go back to the materials. You're getting a real look at my workflow here, folks. Let's see what Parrot Dolphin has here. Alright, let's do some floral. Let's look at this. Nice green there. Kind of a nice shiny green. Oh yeah, yeah, I think that'll work. And let's do that on the skirt as well. Nice. Alright, for the belt, we'll just do the same thing. And that's on the lace. Let's do let's see what we got here. PM mesh and lace, lace. Find something that's nice and green, although we can change the color later if we want to. Okay. Here we go. Let's try this. Yeah. And for that, we'll go back to this. There we go. All right, let's see how that looks. I think that'll work. Okay, one thing I like to do with some of these is sometimes it's helpful to bring the background in that you're going to use on a composite. Okay, I'm going to go over here to import background picture, space sidewalk green. That will be it. And you'll get this message about the background doesn't match, blah blah blah, yes. And there we are. So you see, this gives you a pretty good idea of what the final image is going to look like. So let's I'm going to move R over this direction. And this bears absolutely no relation to, I could move her anywhere. I mean, I could move her clean over here. The wings are off the picture, but that really doesn't matter because it's not going to render this picture in the background anyway. We'll get rid of it. We're basically just using it for reference. So what I want to do is mess with the lighting a little bit. So I want to get her kind of more or less where she's going to be. Again, like I said, it doesn't really matter that much. And this is basically just for reference for lighting and one thing and another. So we'll put her right about here. Now you notice we got, this bright light from the galaxy over here is going to be hitting her kind of from this side. So what I'm going to do, I'll go to display and I'm going to turn off the background picture. And I'm going to go to the aux camera and turn it more or less the same direction. And we want our main light, which is up here, to be kind of hitting her from over here. So let's turn this around this way, turn this way. This is our main light, or our key light. And I'm going to go ahead and increase the shadow blur radius a little bit. And I'm going to set the rotations all to 0, just to start with a clean plate. Turn the light this way and vary the X rotation just a bit. Probably want it a little bit more over towards this direction. Okay. Now go back to the main camera. I see we're getting her lit up here. I'm going to take this fill light and take it down a little bit. And let's go to display, show background picture. Okay, yeah, that's getting pretty darn close to what we want. Now we're going to take our fill, bring it up a little bit. And let's go ahead and turn the background picture off again. Go back to aux. And I want this light, this is the rim or the hair light. I'm going to bring it more towards her back. And turn it like this. I want this lighting up her hair and not a whole lot else. Sort of like this. And it doesn't really matter if it hits the top of her wings a little bit. That's not going to be a big deal. And we can even bring down the angle end a little bit so that it's more concentrated where her hair is. And I want to give that just a little touch of a green tint. Right about there. And we'll leave that about 69. This one's a little high. That's 130%. We'll bring that down just a bit. Maybe 105%. And okay, not looking bad. Let's look at this with the picture. We're getting pretty close, folks. We're getting pretty close. Now we got this bright light down here by our feet, so let's create another light which will come in as a spotlight. And turn this off. Go back to our aux camera. And there's our light. We want it down towards the bottom. And what I usually do with my lights, I like to actually be able to see them. So I'll go to display and where is it? Object style. And I usually use cartoon with lines. And that makes the lights, it just makes them easier to see rather than just that outline. So we will take this, and again I'm going to zero the rotations, and zero the parameters here. Because I want this light to be more or less under her, like this. Do an X rotation to point the light up. And with this, I'm going to go into properties, and rather than constant, I'm going to set it to inverse square. So it acts a little bit more like a real light. Now, I actually think I'm going to go to a point light instead. And that's back behind her. Not where I want it. Okay. Now that's a little bit strong with inverse square. It behaves more like an actual light. The closer you are, the stronger the light is. Of course, I can always take it down a little further, distance-wise, and of course, decrease the intensity. Let's go back to our main camera. And let's turn our, where is it? Show background picture. Okay. Turn that off, turn this one on. I want to bring that light a little bit. Yeah, that's why I couldn't see it, because it was right under her. Pretty much where it should be. All right. Main camera, and let's take one more look at it with the background picture. We're getting there. Because now you see you've got, you know, the light coming up off of this, and it's illuminating her shoes, illuminating her from the bottom. So pretty much where I want to be. And this is what it looks like rendered. And as you can see, it gives you a pretty good idea of what we're going to wind up with. And yeah, so let's go ahead and go back to our preview and go to display and clear background picture. And what I will do now is do the full-sized render. So we'll set the render dimensions, render to exact, and I usually go 22, for something like this, for vertical I'll go 2250, 3300 pixels. That is approximately, if you do that in inches, that's approximately a standard American piece of paper, 11 or 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. I will usually go 300 on the resolution, because if I want to print it, I can, and I can always reduce it in size for posting on the web to 72 inches so that you know, if somebody wants to steal the image, you know, it's not real high resolution for them to make a t-shirt or anything out of. Unless it's me, of course, and then I can put my t-shirts on Redbubble or Pixels, hint hint. So another shameless plug there. Alright, now the main camera, let's set this to main camera. So we got a 50mm camera. We're going to increase that a little bit, about 70 to 90, 70 to 100, somewhere in that range. And we're going to bring this up. We're going to bring her over a little bit, get her in the middle of the picture, and render her nice and big. for the final image. So we'll render that, and we'll see you back in Photoshop. Okay, we're back in Photoshop, and I noticed while editing at this point we're at about 55 minutes, so I'm going to try to wrap this up here fairly quickly. I said this was going to be a long video, and it is. So I've done a little bit more work on our star, galaxy, nebula, whatever it is back here. And now let's bring Kinnie into the picture. Okay, ooh, she's tiny. But that's okay. That's why we have transform. Now I want to get her about the right size. Place her over here. Maybe not quite on top of the light. Down a little bit. Want to try to get all of her wings in the picture. And it's not going to hurt if she's a little bit over this direction. Because the way the light is, actually it looks pretty good, because the light's here, it's illuminating her ankle and it's illuminating her leg here, so that's looking pretty close to what it ought to look like. So there's not really a whole lot we need to do, but I do want to do a few extra things. One of them, we're going to get Kinnie up close and personal here. I'm going to do a Control J and make another copy. And I am going to rasterize this layer. Rasterize. Thank you, Photoshop, for being so cooperative. And what I want to do, 3D hair, hair is soft, and just by the nature of the beast, it's really tough to get a good, soft, natural looking 3D hair. The vendors do a wonderful job at it. Biscuit's hair is extremely well done. Pretty much all of them do. SAV made some wonderful hair. Joanna, so sad that she left us so soon. But hair should be soft, and what I like to do to kind of soften it up a little bit is I will go in here and I will use this gadget called the mixer brush. And I've already got a hair brush on there. I believe it's one of Angie's. Let's see, Angie brushes, Angie Hair 2. These are wonderful brushes. Not only for doing what I'm going to be doing here, but for actually painting hair. That I've got this mixer brush, and what the mixer brush does is it will mix, which is why it's called a mixer brush. And it's exceptionally good for doing hair. You know, if you use a light touch, you can start to soften the hair. You know, you have to be a little bit careful with it because it'll grab, you know, it'll grab her wings too, which we don't want to do. But it's exceptionally good for softening hair. And you can spread the light out a little bit. And it just gives it a softer feel. And like I said, you have to use a light touch with this, which is where a Wacom tablet or a Cintiq really shines. And if, like right here, the hair is kind of almost going into her shoulder, you can kind of smear that hair out a little bit. And it's just, it's an awesome tool. And it's got some other neat tricks up its sleeve too. If you saw the image I did of Pippa with the fire truck, the hose in that, I couldn't find anything 3D, so I actually painted that in with the mixer brush. And a little bit different technique. And I will actually go ahead and put up a tutorial on using that mixer brush in it'll probably be a few weeks before I do that. It might even be the first of the year, but because I've got about a million other projects going on. But this is just one of the techniques that I use. And one of the neat things, I have mentioned earlier, I've got version 2020 of Photoshop. If you watch this brush, they've added a feature where if you use your right or left directional keys, okay, like for instance, I'm going to push the right one. Look at the brush, it's rotating. So you can rotate the brush wide like this. And then when I go the other way, I'll push the left one and it'll rotate that direction, which is, I think, is just super slick. You know, it's $120 a year for the photography plan, which includes Photoshop and Lightroom, and I hardly ever use Lightroom, but you always get the latest version of Photoshop. You'll get what I call you'll get the major upgrade version, which is the bug version, and then you'll get the kill the bugs updates. So it's kind of my little joke on that. Anyway, while I'm softening her hair, one of the other projects I've got going on, I have a ton of 3D Studio files that I've downloaded from a place called archive3d.net, and I'll put a link in the description down below. They have tons and tons of those 3DS files, everything including the kitchen sink. It's just massive. But the problem is some of them, you know, they're designed for 3D Studio, of course. Some of them work well in Poser and some don't. I am in the process right now of taking the ones that I do have and converting them from 3DS into OBJ format. For a couple of reasons. One, they seem to work better in Poser. And I can also import them into Photoshop. I can also import them into DAZ Studio. And I've just started playing with Blender. And Blender will import OBJ files, but it does not import the, what was I saying, 3DS files. So I'm just trying to make those all importable by all of the 3D software I have. And I'm actually using Poser most of the time to do the conversion. Okay, we got Kinnie looking pretty good here, got the hair looking pretty decent, and to avoid drawing this out and making it exceptionally long, I'm going to go back to this version, go back to the full screen version, and I'm going to go back to my regular brush. And we're going to do a little bit of enhancing on the background here and on Kinnie, and then we'll wrap this up. So let's, on top of Kinnie, let's put a new layer. We will make this an overlay layer. And I've got almost a light aqua, which is probably good. That's probably a real good color to start with. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, not quite that big. And this is just a smooth brush. Turn the airbrush feature off, and I'll turn the flow feature on. And see how that just brightens her hair up a little bit. We want it a little brighter on this side because we got this light coming from this starburst over here. So we want the light to be a little stronger over here on this side. And the overlay brush is cool because it overlays onto the lighter areas. So, you know, if we want to, we can come up here and kind of spice up the wings a little bit. Make those a little brighter. Bring her face out a little bit more, her beautiful green eyes. Come up here where the light's hitting the wing and kind of emphasize that a little bit. And so on and so on and so on, like this. So you bring that shine of that lace out just a little bit. And we come down here, bring that out a little bit. Don't really need a whole lot of extra light on her feet. And maybe come over and enhance the light on this wing a little bit. Kind of like that. We'll do a Control-0 to bring it back down. See kind of where we're at. Okay, I'm liking that pretty much. So now let's go ahead and make this brush nice and big. I'm going to reach over here and grab a 300 pixel brush and probably make it even a little larger. Let's see, let's turn that airbrush feature off. And let's grab some of this. I'm going to kind of tilt it towards the cool edge, or the cool part of the spectrum, and going to paint in a little bit of a glow there. Again, just we're on the same overlay layer. And reduce that down a little bit. bring out some of the glow on this mysterious green sidewalk that's floating in space. A little bit there on her shoulder, a little bit there, a little bit on that. And kind of as a final little touch, I'm going to put just a regular layer. Crank this up and very, very lightly paint over her foot to give it kind of that light glow. And I might even change that from normal to, let's see, what's lighting look like? Screen, they all look pretty much the same. Lighting and screen, I really don't see any difference between those. Or normal. So I'll just leave it as normal. And that's pretty much it, with the exception of one last thing. I'll go up to my libraries and I am going to grab this, which is my signature, and I need to make a new one for 2020. I want to reduce that down a little bit, move that over, click off of it, and I usually set this to soft light, but in this case it doesn't show up very well, so I'll probably just leave it as normal and reduce the opacity down somewhat like that. Do a Control S, save our image of our lovely little fey Arkinia, or Kinnie as she likes to be called. And you will get to see more of her in Chapter 7, and you will get to see some of her capabilities. And like I said before, we will have several new characters. We'll have a new Fae character. You've seen her before. And she will be joining the team. We'll have a few other new faces. You've already seen Melanie's little sis, Bindi, has made an appearance. You'll see more of her, and just all kinds of good stuff is coming down the road, especially if I can avoid destroying the few brain cells I have left while trying to learn Blender. So, that's it. This has probably gone over an hour, so I am going to say goodbye. I'm going to sign off for my last behind the scenes of 2019, and we will catch you again in 2020. Everyone, have a wonderful holiday season. Thank you for all your support. Thank you for all the wonderful comments on Renderosity. You guys rock, and we'll talk to you in the next one. Take care, everyone. Bye.